Welcome to the third annual virtual panel. The purpose of today is to sort of get a feel for what things are like after high school or after college.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maya. I graduated from HPA in 2015. I went to Dartmouth College, graduated 2019, and then now I work at Google, and I'm a senior staffing operations associate, which basically means I schedule candidate interviews. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and talk with you all today.
Hey, I'm Ash, HPA class of 2018, which is actually so long ago, I can't believe it. I recently graduated from Tulane this past May, and now I'm a commissioned officer in the Army as a military intelligence officer. And in the civilian side, I am also an intelligence analyst for the Pentagon.
I'll stick with the DC theme. Hi, everyone. I'm Teddy Quinn, class of 2010, which is I texted a classmate when I got invited to do this. I was just so honored that they called me young. And I went to the University of San Francisco, graduated 2013, and now I work for the National Labor Relations Board as a communications specialist. So all things comm for basically anything to do with unions in this country.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dylan Shropshire. I don't know why they called me young. I'm 2006. I'm 34 now. It's kind of young, kind of old, but yeah, I founded Big Island Grown, which is the cannabis company on this island. We have 3 dispensaries, and we're one of the 8 licenses in the state of Hawaii. I also own a restaurant in Hilo called Vibe Cafe, if you guys have ever been there, and just have a couple other businesses I've started up. Just basically an entrepreneur. That's what I do.
Hi, I'm Risa. I graduated HPA in 2013. I was an international student from Japan, and right now I'm pursuing a master's degree in international competitive education at Stanford University. So nice to see everyone.
Hi, my name's Billy, and like Dylan, I was surprised to have Kelly invite me to this. I graduated in 2003, so I've almost been, I guess I've been out of high school for as long as I was old in high school, which is crazy to say. So I feel like the old guy here. I went to Carnegie Mellon after HPA, and then joined SpaceX shortly after, and have been with SpaceX for 15 years, or I guess 16 years now. And I was the senior manager of the Dragon spacecraft engineering team, which sends astronauts up to the International Space Station. And now I work for Starlink, delivering internet service to Central and South America.
After graduating from HPA, did you feel well prepared for life after high school? That's kind of part one of the question. If you did feel prepared, what is one example of how it kind of like helped you? And then if you didn't feel prepared, what do you think HPA could improve about that aspect? So anyone feel free to jump in.
I was a boarder for 5 days a week at HPA, and I kind of felt like that made me really prepared for college and life. And then I had like a buffer zone between being my parents' house and then being like a fully fledged college adult. A lot of my friends in my dorm didn't know how to do their own laundry or like schedule their own stuff or make their own meals. So you kind of learn how to manage your own time as a boarder, and being a little more independent. On the other side of that, I find that this is me hating on the demerit system at HPA, but kind of having a really set schedule and immediate consequences for actions made me a big napper in college and in my life after. So it became a big thing of me like having to implement my own structures and rules for myself after being so like rigid in high school. Overall, I was very prepared for life after because of HPA.
That was really similar to my answer. I was a boarder 7 days a week. And in many ways, I felt ready for college because of that experience, because I had almost been living on my own for 4 years already. But your time at HPA is so scheduled from when you wake up to, especially if you're a boarder, to basically when you go to bed, right? I mean, it's, you wake up, you go to classes, you go to sports. After sports, you have dinner. After dinner, it's study hall. After study hall, it's lights out, like all of this. And so when you're left without that structure, it can be really almost freeing to like not have any structure at all, which unfortunately does have consequences. But I think it made me it made me prepared for college, just in like living in the dorms and being able to like, I kept the study hall structure for as long as I could. That was like maybe a month and a half, but like it did help me settle into school for sure.
I boarded since I was in 8th grade at HPA, and that really, really helped me when I went to college. I was already used to being on my own. I was already used to having a separate kind of time structure. It translated really, really well to college. Everyone else that was there, it was like their first time away from home. They didn't know what to do with themselves. They didn't know structure, didn't know laundry, for instance. And that was very apparent with my peers, and how it was a little bit difficult for them. But for me, because of boarding, it was a lot easier. One thing that I think that schooling doesn't teach us until we get out in the real world are just really like life skills. And I kind of just want to touch on that. It's not really HBA's fault. You really don't learn them in college either, but I just think it's important for you to think about what just like taxes, managing your personal budget, learning what real estate is, how to buy and sell real estate. Real estate is going to be part of your life no matter who you are. Learning how to read legal documentation. This is stuff that every job you take, you're going to have to know. The earlier that you start practicing it and learning these things, these everyday skills that they don't teach you in school, the better off you're going to be, especially when it comes to like a personal budget and learning how to review legal documents. So that's my advice.
I was also a boarding student since 6th grade. And I think it really strengthened my self-management skill. Now I know how to make myself happy when I'm stressed, and I know how to make a schedule for myself. So I think those things I had to deal with it as when I was 11 years old. So yeah, that really helped me prepare for life after high school. And the other thing is, when I first arrived at HPA, I was an international student from Japan. It was my first time communicating in real English, and I couldn't speak in English at all. So my classmates and my roommates helped me a lot. So I think that, and through that, I was able to connect with people at HBA, and that I don't know how to name this experience or skill, but I think being able to communicate with people from around the world and embracing the culture really helped me out with the life after high school.
What was your favorite part of your HPA experience, and kind of what made it so unique?
Olympics was my favorite part of my HPA experience. I think it's like a great opportunity to bond with your class and promote like healthy competition. And I chose like the more creative route of Olympics rather than like the athletic route, where I spearheaded like our talent show and our lip sync. And it really helped me like develop leadership skills, patience, confidence. And it's a great talking point, like in like a college interview, or like when you're trying to join clubs in college, like to pull back on this experience you had at HPA, where you were able to like have a creative outlet or lead something, or it's just very unique to HPA. I feel like Olympics. So you can, while it might seem small, you can use this in like future, like examples of how you performed for your class and brought a group together. So I'd say, yeah, Olympics, I still think about it and watch my lip sync videos, as embarrassing as that is.
Like one thing that HPA definitely taught me was the importance of the ability to compete. And I think in Olympics is one of those things. Song contest was another, class 2003. I think we won what? Kelly can probably remember better than I do.
3 first place.
A few times. 3, yeah. And obviously, like I never really did. Well, I did golf, I guess. I didn't really do the sports thing as much, but there's such an emphasis on sports, which I think the importance there is like learning teamwork, the ability to compete. I did robotics club, and we were competing with other robotics clubs, and also won. So yeah, the ability to compete, the desire to win. I think these are all, like, if you can keep that fire, with you, you'll go great places.
But all of the teachers at HPA and the staff that's there they're older than you, they know more than you, but they're really great mentors. So I had a good advisor. I was obsessed with Mr. Muma in high school. I think it's why I do what I do now. But being able to talk to people who are older than you and ask them for mentorship from a young age is a really good skill to learn. I think that HPA was really instrumental in learning that skill. Makes you a better conversationalist. You do well in interviews. If you're doing Rush next year when you're in college, it helps there too. You know, have a mature conversation pretty easily. And then being able to pull back on that and like contact old professors for advice or teachers for advice later on is really helpful. And I was never afraid of my professors in college because of that. Because they were all, my teachers in high school were always such a good resource to me.
Monthly or near monthly like outings we get at HPA where to like go whale watching or hiking in Waipio or learn basket weaving. I mean, those experiences are so few and far between in adulthood. I promise, like no one is planning whale watching excursions for you after high school. So that was just really so unique and so incredible. The turtle tagging program, which I hope is still running, was phenomenal, though one of the hardest activities of my life. Also, my real answer though is I'm going to be vulnerable with all of you, but I did not come from a great home life. And HPA was really the first place where I felt like I had community and ohana. And it was the first place that I think actually saw me for who I was as an individual. And to be able to have that space at such a young age, I think then really set me up for success later on.
I think my favorite part of my HPA experience was sporting life. And because I was able to build a family, friends, community, and I still keep in touch with all my friends. And with my first roommate is the closest friend, and I still keep in touch with her, although we live in different places. So I think having that community and having a place where I know that, or community where it welcomes me all the time, always is definitely a favorite part of my HBA experience.
Just the friendships I made at HBA and just the connections, especially like just the connections of because I'm still on the Big Island. I mean, I'm from here. I went to HBA, but I boarded because I was from Hilo. It's too far to drive. But, you know, all my friends from Japan, Korea, Germany, I mean, I visited them right after high school or even during high school. And I think I'm on like 34 countries now, and just traveling the world and being able to like visit each friend or connection from HBA in their home and being welcomed in by their family, and like getting that authentic experience from just as it translated from our friendship to being able to see what their life's like was probably my favorite part of HBA and the most rewarding part after HBA too, I would say, for me.
What do you know now that you wish you knew during your time at HPA?
I think get involved in the clubs or performances or activities that make you slightly uncomfortable. I feel like HPA creates this incredibly like accepting and comfortable environment where you can test things that you like or like see what you're interested in and push yourself in a way that's you have proper support. And it's rare you'll be in an environment like that where you can like fully immerse yourself in things that make you uncomfortable. And while I know you are graduating in a handful of months, you still have time to like implement this and take that mindset with you to college, whatever you're doing afterwards, which is a much bigger setting to be in and like test those skills. So like if you lay that foundation now, you'll have like the confidence to go into college with ready to like jump into things that make you uncomfortable, because that's like where you really learn like what you're good at and what you can accomplish.
When you have so much time on your hands now as like a second semester senior, identify like what your negative habits are in like a school space or in like a home life space, because that will only get amplified when you're stressed out in college. Like for me personally, like I know that like I'm the kind of person that when I get really stressed out, like I forget to eat. And that became like a huge thing in college where like my brain wasn't working. You have the time and the resources near you and the family near you or the counselors near you that if you have a negative habit like procrastination or getting afraid of something like public speaking or little issues like that, take the time now to kind of figure out what like you don't like about yourself, what's not going to be conducive to your success in the future, and handle it now. It's so much easier to address when you're younger.
How did HPA assist you with your first position after graduation or beyond?
HPA being an international school is really, really cool. It's a once in a lifetime experience to get to meet from different cultures. For me, it ended up being hard at first. My field, you to report all your foreign contacts. So I had like a list of 20 friends from high school to be like, I know this person, they're from Japan. On the other side of that, you get really good at like cross-cultural communication, finding the root of an issue. And in intelligence, a lot of your job is to sift through so much information and figure out what like the main point is. And I feel like whenever I was talking to people at HPA or making friends, it cultural communication, talking to people with different backgrounds, you kind of get really good at wiring your brain in that way. And then also language skills too. I picked up a lot of Japanese, some Mandarin from my friends in the dorms that ended up being really helpful in my job today.
You guys are surrounded by peers that are just like incredibly, brilliant, motivated. And I think I didn't really totally appreciate that, how maybe like amazing the student population is at HPA, until I left and kind of went out into the real world, and you just get kind of a cross section of what the rest of the world is like. And so what's happening at HPA is you just have this very small, tight community of like motivated and enabled people. And my experience was I had a really great, strong group of friends and teachers that were all interested in like really, cool things, math and science, and building robots and playing video games, honestly. And I thought that was just like an incredibly nurturing environment where, as long as you're focused on something that can be kind of productive, you can really do a lot with that. Like it's really easy to form like a strong, high-performing team at HPA, and take advantage of that while you can. If you're excited about something, get your friends excited about it and team up and do something amazing.
How HPA helped me find my first position after graduation, I actually had 2 HPA alums like refer me and prep me for all my interviews to get my first job out of college. Like, the HPA network is incredible. And you may forget about that once you're in college, you only use your college network. Like, no, go back to the HPA alumni network, go on LinkedIn, send those random messages, go back to like your own class or like people who are a couple years above you that you built relationships with, and be like, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing, or here's what I'm interested in. Like, can you hop on the phone? And more times than not, they will say yes, because people love talking about their experience. Like, people usually love giving advice. So like, just be confident in that you have the HPA network to rely on, and send those cold emails or cold LinkedIn messages and be like, hey, I need your help. And you can do that to me. Like, just feel free to do that. And I think, yeah, HPA network helped me get to where I am now in my career, for sure.
For me, I think HPA started to foster my creativity more than I had ever given it time or attention to beforehand. And I feel very lucky that my job now and communications in general is a really creative field. You wouldn't expect that, but you're always trying new things. You're always trying to think of new ways to break through the noise. You're always trying to find new methods to like get your story and your attention out. And so to be able to work in what is a really creative field, I don't think that would have happened without HPA's like really supportive teaching and peer environment. So I really credit HPA to that.
If you were each hiring for a position at your respective workplaces, what would you look for in HPA graduates?
I have 120 employees underneath me, right, as of now. All the businesses I started was with just myself. So I've done a lot of hiring. I don't do as much hiring these days as I used to because I have an HR department now, but my skill that I always look for is in someone is like a hunger and willingness to get better and learn. And that seems pretty obvious, but like most people don't really have that. They kind of just want to go into a position. They want to be stagnant. They might say they want to like go up the ladder or whatever, but they're not going home and they're not learning about that position. They're not waking up in the morning. They're not passionate enough to where they wake up every day and are like, how am I going to get better? I'm going to get 1% better every day. 1% better every day, compounds into success, right? So what I look for is look for a hunger and want to learn, a consistent want to learn, and perseverance. So if I can see those two skills in someone, like it's a no-brainer, because you can basically train anyone that's passionate, that wants to learn every day and will persevere in the hard times. So that's what I look for.
Being in like national security, I think that HPA graduates, at least from my experience going to HPA, I found they tend to have a good bit of grit and leadership experience. HPA throws you a lot of challenges. It's not a very like easy school to coast through. They actually make you work for your high school diploma. So having that like stick-to-itiveness is really important for solving complex problems. And then also with the HPA particular note, having a lot of integrity and good character. While I did like lament about the demerit system while I was there, knowing their immediate consequences to actions, knowing what's expected of you, really valuing honesty and integrity. It's really important in most fields in life, just as being an adult in general, and then especially when you're working for like sensitive projects.
If I were hiring for a position, I would probably look for boldness or not being afraid of failing, because personally at HBA, I think there is an atmosphere where people don't care, or they're always there to support you even if you fail. And I was failing every day while HBA, not being able to communicate well, breaking rules, and getting scolded by teachers. But every time when I fail, teachers and my friends were there to support me. So I would look for something for not being afraid of failing, and also being able to support others.
Having sort of a thirst to succeed, thirst to learn. And I mentioned this earlier, thirst to compete, and having a history of that, like people who have really tried to get involved on the hardest thing, you know, whether it's football or I don't know, again, like robotics or like math club, and really gone out of their way to make sure they're winning in those places. And then you know, it doesn't have to be continuous forever. Maybe you do football in high school and then you decide that you want to do you want to make a concrete canoe in college, which is actually a competition. But I think just like showing that as you're moving through these like different life events, you're striving to win, and you're picking up skills along the way to win. I think is pretty major. And it could even be things like, you know, win at school, like have high GPA, high SAT scores. That's like one example.
If there was something you had to learn that was not from HPA, what was it?
I felt pretty unprepared and unaware of like the timeline starting in college for the things you should probably do to prep for your career post-grad. So like, I feel like I went to Dartmouth and everyone else knew that they should be like applying for potential freshman summer internships to get that sophomore or junior summer job that would maybe give them an offer for their post-grad job. So just like the timeline of the prep for your career, and it all depends on like what you want to do with your career. But like, I kind of was like, la, 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 this is great. Like, I just was focusing on like learning to love my college and like making friends. And like, I went home to Hawaii my freshman summer, and like, I just wasn't aware of like, some people had a strict timeline of like networking, applying for jobs, getting a job. It was like and I think some high schools like really drill that into you, especially in like the New England area. Like, it was just something went right over my head. And so I think like figuring out like, even if you don't know what you want to do, just like try to think about like, these are 4 years that everybody says will fly by really fast, and they will. So just like preparing your timeline and like thinking, so like you're not going into graduation kind of like, oh, what is my resume? You know, like, what do I have to put on my resume?
Because HPA is a prep school, they're prepping you for college, and it's kind of hard to see what's coming after that. I feel like a big struggle I had even after graduating college was that I was like, wow, I got into like a really good college, and then I graduated from that really good college and I got a job right out of college. And then I was like, what now? It's kind of hard to keep waiting for your life to begin with the next thing. Sometimes there's not a big next milestone, especially after college. There's no next place you have to be at that you're expected to be at. It's kind of enjoying the phase of your life that you're in. There's this quote, I think it's from like Encanto or something. But it was like, there's this fish in the ocean. It's asking where the water is or where the ocean is. And the older fish goes, it's what you're in right now. Like, you're in your life. It's not the next thing is when it's going to start. Start to enjoy where you're at and build really, really long-term goals with smaller goals built into it. Otherwise, you'll get really sad when you finish with the big thing you're looking forward to finishing.
I have two answers. One, pretty simple. I had no idea how to budget. You know, I got a $50 a week allowance at HPA, and that went by real quick, but like, you got what you needed. And then you started getting paychecks and more bills and more responsibilities. And all of a sudden, credit card debt becomes a thing. And so I wish budgeting had been kind of part of the HBA curricular sometimes. The other thing, which I think I sort of mentioned this too in my earlier answer, but so much of your time is scheduled and regimented at HPA. And in college, I started working I started working my first semester I finished college in 3 years. During that time, while going to school full time, I always had an internship and I always had at least one paying job. My day started at 3:30 in the morning and it usually ended around midnight. That was just like my 3 years of college. And then I started really working hard in DC and trying to like do the fellowships and the internships and the networking and all of it. And what I really came down to is rest is really important, and taking time for yourself and breathing from the hustle. And to make that a priority, not because it's just for you, to make that a priority for you is something that I really value now.
Just winging it sometimes. Like there is so much structure at HPA, and I think people are like, yeah, you got to get the high school degree, and then you got to go and get the college degree, and maybe you go and get a master's, and then like because you've got the master's, that allows you to go and get some other things. And yeah, there are like definitely some careers where it's like you got to go do that. Like, if you want to be a doctor or something, you got to go and get an MD. But there are plenty of careers for people, that are maybe more creative minded, where you can get a lot done without the official certificate. And the certificate can take a long time, be really frustrating, and you could be pulling your hair out of like all the stupid stuff you have to go through just to get a piece of paper, when like honestly, there's nothing physically preventing you from just going and doing it. So like, don't be afraid of like going off-roading to make something successful. Like you really can accomplish way more than you think you can.
If you're from Hawaii, learn to drive on the interstate. Do it immediately. Find your nearest interstate, get in a car, and learn how to drive on a 3 to 6 lane highway. It's so scary. Figure out how to do that immediately.
Because as a boarder, you're not allowed to get your driver's license. I'm 30 years old and I still do not have a driver's license. So like there's also the opposite effect to that. I have gotten around on public transit since I was 18 just fine. But maybe some student ed for the boarders or driver's ed for the boarders would go a long way.
Are many of you still in contact with some of your friends that you made during your HPA experience?
I'm heavily in contact with the closest friends I had at HPA. They're like brothers to me now. I call them all the time. I run business ideas off them. They do the same. They're like a sounding board. And then I'm also in contact with a lot of the boarders that I was in the dorm with at Robertson's and where they are. And every time I go to another country, I hit them up. I have like a Rolodex in that sense, where I just have that contact list of all my friends in different countries and still in contact with them. And obviously with social media now, it's a lot easier to stay in touch with people. So the answer is yes, Kelly. I am in contact with everyone that I met there and was friends with.
I got married on December 28th, and my best friend at HPA was at the wedding. So that was my little thing. Also, Kento, Tomita, and Ryan and Daniel Cohen were supposed to come, but they got stopped by Southwest, but they were going to be the wedding too.
My best friend at HPA were the maid of honors at each other's weddings as well. And some of you might, Hana Sarah Ito, who's related to Mr. White, she actually, she lost her job in her housing at the start of the pandemic, which was really, really hard. But she came to live with my wife and I for 8 months, and she's working at my last organization, and we see each other every other day. It's a really, really great community.
Like I mentioned, I still keep in touch with my first roommate in 6th grade, Claire. We became roommates again in my senior year, and she's from Korea, but we still visit each other every year, except for the years during pandemic, but I'm planning to visit her this year.
If you could tell yourself when you were a senior anything, what would it be?
It's okay to experience culture shock if you're going to college. this is something I experienced my whole first year of college. And like, I encourage, if it does happen to you, just kind of like be aware of it. It's not, and to not let it like defeat you. I spent a lot of time in my freshman dorm room. I didn't join a lot of clubs because I was just so busy being like, what am I doing? Like, what is this? What is going on? I'm not really aware of like what everybody else seems like they're aware of at this school. Like, just kind of like, know it's a experience that may happen and just kind of stick with it. Like, try not to let it intimidate you. I really had a tough time my first and even like part of my second year of college. It took me like 2 full years to like love my school. And I'm so glad I stayed committed to it and like stuck with it, because it was like the best year, like 4 years of my life. Like, that'll add to your experience. I really started low and went way up. So just understand that that may occur. Culture shock is real, and like a lot of us experience it, especially coming from Hawaii and a small school and potentially going to a large school. It yeah, it's real, but it's you can manage. There's ways to manage.
If I was going to tell myself something, it would be do every experience possible before you start to get older, because I'm 34 now. To go travel, I mean, I have a family, I have 3 daughters. It's just like, they're not that I don't go travel and have a great time with them. That's not the point. But the point is, like, when you're on your own, it's so much easier to take in different experiences, to travel, to start a job, to quit a job, to do all these different things, right? And so I would just say, try everything that you want to try, experience everything you want to experience, and do as much as you humanly can. You can before you start to get, a family and a long-term career that you can't get out of. That would be my main advice to my younger self. And I feel like I accomplished that myself a little bit. But I'm glad I did what I did. And I'd be telling myself, just reinforcing that to myself again, if I was talking to myself senior year.
Is be kind. I feel like in high school, for me, I'm going to talk for me, but I was pretty insecure. I had a lot of big feelings and nowhere to put them. And sometimes that led to me being meaner than I would want to remember myself as. And so kindness will get you so much farther than almost anything else. Kindness and passion are like the 2 biggest things I think you can take out of HPA into the real world.
What's the number 1 attribute you need to be successful as an entrepreneur?
Oh,
Perseverance, hands down, number 1. Nothing is more important than that. It's just such a long road. And I think that when you start to build something, it just feels like it should come so much faster. And so what you're going to realize is that it is a long road, and it's never going to be as you imagined it to be. You're going to get punched in the face a few times, not in the literal sense, but in the business sense. And it's about being able to basically get up the next day and just like put your pants back on and just go. And to me, that is the number 1 attribute. Nothing else is more important than that.
I feel like hard work beats intelligence. We like to say hard work beats intelligence 99% of the time, but obviously that's a fake statistic, which is kind of funny. But yeah, hard work.
awesome.
While other people are sleeping, work harder, get ahead. Pull the all-nighter, do it.
Yeah, get a good morning routine. Start it now. I wish I started mine earlier, but that's win the morning, win the day.
And I was wondering, how big of a connection is there between like your first few college courses and to your career?
They make you take like all of the required classes really early on in your career. So you're not taking any of the classes you actually want to take. You're taking the like required writing, required math, required like stuff that people should be taught in high school but aren't. You are being taught at HPA, but a lot of kids aren't being taught these skills. And so your first 2 years are mostly just like classes that you just like need to take. I don't think I use a lot of the skills that I learned in my internships and my work and my jobs in the first 2 years I had in college, but very few from the classes.
I was a political science major in college, which everyone says is stupid, but I ended up working in, like, my job is to report on basically like global geopolitical news and events. So look who's laughing now. I did an IR major, which is international relations, and everything is directly connected to what I do today. Like I literally go back and think of terms I learned freshman year in college when I'm doing my work.
I have like a bookcase that has all my college textbooks in it, and I like pull one out practically every day. So yeah, I definitely use what I picked up in college often. I will say that I felt like I learned more than the first 6 months on the job than I did in 4 years of college. but I still learned a lot in college too.
How did you figure out what you wanted to do as a career and then like maybe get there?
For me, my career goals, I don't really think there's a dream job for me. I think there's a job that I'm good at and I can tolerate, and it allows me to afford the life that I want to live. If that's a little bit depressing, I'm sorry. But I basically just figured out like what I was the best at in college and then just monetize that. Just do that.
A non-linear path of discovery. I think that as I tried different things, I learned what I liked, what I didn't like. And I learned pretty quickly that I didn't want to work for anyone. That was a discovery that happened pretty early on in my life. And from there, it was all about trying to start things through ideas. And I had many failed businesses. I started a fire ant killing company one point that totally flopped. I started this other real estate investment group that totally flopped. I mean, it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of failing. And that is kind of what led me to the career that I had. And it was kind of by chance the application for the license of cannabis came out, and I was already in my kind of field doing farming, and I just applied for it and dropped everything I was doing. And that's kind of how my life turned in that direction. I still would have been doing farming even if I didn't get the cannabis license, and farming is what I love. It's what I've done since I could walk. So business and farming kind of happened naturally, but it wasn't a linear path. It was a lot of trial and error, a lot of failures, a lot of figuring out what I didn't like. But my advice would be just get out there and try it. Don't be like scared about the amount of money you're going to make or whatever. Use it as a learning experience. If you can go work somewhere on a good internship, or you can go work for underneath someone but not get paid the wage that you want to get paid, that experience is going to be invaluable. It's going to dictate where you go, what you want to do, and it's just going to naturally happen over time. At least it did for me. That's what happened for me.
I learned what I want to do by actually doing them. I realized that I'm passionate about education because I was tutoring and teaching during college, and I realized this could be a career. And I also tried doing internships, tech companies, consulting, banking. I didn't like them. So I realized my passion in education. And still now I want to become a researcher, but I'm kind of still trying to figure out what I exactly want to do in the future. And I think I learned that I want to become a researcher by pursuing master's degree. I realized, okay, I'm able to do research. And so I think actually doing things that you might be interested in and figuring liking or not liking them is a really helpful way to figure out your career.
You just have to go out and try different things. I wanted to be a journalist when I entered college, and I did a lot of journalism, but I learned pretty quickly, especially in San Francisco, it was very hard to pay the bills as a starting journalist. And it got to the point where I couldn't. So I had to pivot, and I moved to DC, and I started working in communications for nonprofits and government agencies. And through that, I learned what I really, it's maybe not like a dream job, kind of what Ash was saying, but just like it provides a really nice life. I have a great 9 to 6. I have my weekends. I have money to travel. And I get to do really important work with really great people. And so I'm really happy with where I ended up. But the only reason I ended up where I did was because I just tried and I failed. And the failure is not failure, it's lessons learned, right? There's no such thing as failure. It's just what lessons are you learning from that? And so take your time with it, and it'll come to you.
I knew in high school, I liked building things and setting things on fire. I don't know. I kind of actually fell into working for an aerospace startup, but it actually has both of those things: building rad machines, which I totally loved super early on, even in middle school. And we make a humongous amount of fire, and it's great. I love it.
While your career isn't like probably what you're going into next, you may be thinking like, so what do I major in? Like my major is going to set me up for my career. I'd suggest not majoring in something you think will make you the most money. Like major in something that you just love studying, which you've commonly figure out in like the first 6 months of college. And even if you don't think it's going to make you those money, like I loved psychology, loved it. I loved film and media. So I majored and minored in both of those things. And while those don't usually correspond with the most money made, like computer science or econ, it's what I enjoyed studying, which I think set me up to be better in my career because I wasn't like slacking my work because I didn't enjoy it and forced myself to do this because I thought it would be the best way to set myself up for my career. So study what you love, despite what people may say about that major. Like literally don't listen to what people say.
Don't pick a major because it sounds impressive. I started off at Tulane as a political economy major, and I'm so bad at math and I suffered so horribly. You're probably gonna change your major like 3 times throughout college. Be okay with that. Just figure out what you like. Be undeclared for as long as possible. That's an option for you. Take random classes. Take like a dance class, like an acting class. Just figure out what you like. Be a person. Like that's a great piece of advice. Maya, thank you.
You'll never work a day in your life if every day you're doing what you love. So
there's
yeah,
so much truth to that. There's so much truth to what Billy's saying. I mean, that is like the crux of it. Like you can't really persevere whatever you're doing if you're not enjoying it. Like that's why being an entrepreneur, like if you actually start something up you don't enjoy, there's no way you're gonna be successful. It's just too hard. So yeah, find something you love so you never have to work a day in your life.
We appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy days to speak with the students here. Thank you so much. You guys are definitely representing what HPA stands for. So thank you for that.